Welcome back to our series on website design. Today we are going to consider website domain and hosting. I'll advise for the purpose of understanding what we are doing here that you check out my previous video, which I've dropped the link there on different kinds of websites. At the end, I expect that you'll be able to understand what domain is and also understand hosting, the different kinds of domain and different kind of hosting, and then you are going to see some of the requirements, basic things that needs to be taken into consideration when you are adopting a domain name or a hosting plan. So first of all, a domain name is simply the unique address that identifies a website on the internet. Now the concept is that every website has an address. We call it an IP address. It's supposed to be in form of number 192.168.0.1 and so on. But this will be difficult for people to understand and memorize. So you will not be going about telling people that your domain address is 192.168. That will sound somehow. So the body that is in charge of internet have now decided that every domain IP address should be mapped, should be encapsulated with a domain name. So instead of the numbers, you can pick a name that relates to your brand. You can say, for example, you have Google, google.com, and so on. So, but what the browser understands actually is the IP address. So there's what we call a domain name server that matches every domain name to the IP address. I don't want to bore you with that, but if you have questions, let me know in the comment section. So this is a typical domain. Yeah, this is a typical domain, though not in existence, I don't know. But you see, there are different components. Just for knowing sake, the first part of the domain, which is a protocol, you always have HTTP and HTTPS. So the word HTTP means Hypertext Transfer Protocol. That is that shows that the domain is secure. The domain has what we call SSL certificate. We are going to talk about it in the course of this training. Now, the subdomain, which is optional, we have the domain name and the TLD, top level domain extension. It can be .com, it can be .org, and so on. We'll get to understand when and why you need to use which of these domain extension. So the major domain, the root domain is the domain name and the extension. As for instance, google.com. That's the major domain. So now let me also explain hosting. Web hosting is a service that allows individuals and organizations to make their websites accessible. There's a specific server somewhere where all of the files, your image, your text, everything on your website are stored. We call them web server. So now that web server that is hosting. So that's why we call it web hosting server. It hosts it houses your file, and this hosting is connected to the domain. So when anybody hits your domain address on the browser, it gets straight to where your file, which server your file is located, and then the user is able to view the contents of your website. So there are some key points I want us to consider. First, the domain registration. When registering a domain, there are a lot of things you need to consider. So we'll take them one after the other and then we proceed. First, you should think of your domain name, and your name should reflect or relate to your brand, business, or products and services you offer. This helps in creating a strong, memorable connection with your audience. For instance, if you are into fashion, your domain name should first, if possible, depict what you are into. Apart from that, where that is not possible, you have a brand name. A brand should always be found as part of your domain name. We'll talk more about that. But if there are questions, please ask in the comment section. Now, when also choosing the domain name, you should choose a name that is easy for people to spell. When you have complicated and confusing domain, it may lead to misspelling, misunderstanding, and that will make it difficult for users, visitors on the internet to find you. So pick a word that is easy to spell, make it short and concise, make it brief such that they will be able to remember, they will be able to type, they will be able to share, but keep it meaningful and relevant. Then avoid the use of hyphen and numbers on your domain name. Don't say MTN3. No, avoid the use of hyphen and number. Just stick to letters to enhance simplicity. Consider the use of keywords. In every sector, in every niche, there are keywords. So so if where possible, consider the use of keywords, words that you know that users search for as far as that niche is concerned. So this will help your website in ranking higher compared to every other website. But there are other technical issues, technical things you need to know if you want your website to rank higher. So make your domain name unique and memorable so that you'll be able to stand out. Avoid using generic terms or copying existing brands to ensure that your brand has its own identity. Don't go pick words like techno. I now see there's another techno, but the difference is in spelling. So, but make your name unique and make it memorable. Think long term. You know your business is expanding. I once had a client who was into sales of TV and later expanded to sell electronics. But when the client wanted to pick a domain name, he suggested that he wants to buy for smarttv.com.ng. Buy smart, something like that. I can't quickly recall. But that cannot sell other electronics. That restricts his business to TV. So you need to think expansion, think where you are expanding to when you are choosing your domain name. You check the domain availability. Before you now finalize on buying a domain name, use platforms. I'm going to show you how you can check if that domain name exists. And if it exists, you cannot even buy it because the name is already taken. Choose the right domain extension. We have the top level extension, we have .com, .org, .net, and mostly, even though now people do not take that into consideration, but it's actually supposed to be that companies are to use .com, organizations to use .org, networking companies, networking establishments .net. But today, anybody goes for anything, mostly just because that recently the governing body have decided that we can have more extensions. We can have .store, .stake, and so on. Then countries also have top level domains like .uk, .ca, .ng for Nigeria and so on. So also consider trademarks. Ensure that the domain you are choosing does not infringe on existing trademarks. Don't go pick a name that is already in existence and has been doing well. That may lead to legal issues, which I don't think you will be ready to handle. Also check if that name you have chosen is already available on social media platforms. Then check consistency across your website and social media handles. Consistency across your website and social media handles enhances brand recognition. A situation where you pick a name that is already on social media handle managed by another company or another brand and you bought the domain. When you get to social media platforms, you'll be told that that name has already been taken. So you should check your name across top social media platforms before you go ahead to purchase. Select a domain name that is easy to type and also avoid user errors when entering. Now, I have quickly run through this and I've stated that if you consider these factors, you can choose a domain name that does not only represent your brand effectively, but also contributes to the overall success and visibility of your online presence. We're going to do more in the next series I'm going to post. I'm going to show you Okay, we'll be talking about hosting, things you should consider when picking hosting for your website. So if you've not subscribed, do so by clicking the subscribe button and turn on your notifications so that whenever I make an update, you you'll be carried along. Thank you.